Have you ever been on a plane? Maybe you're looking out the window and you've just kind of wondered, why is it a rounded oval and not just a square? It feels like such a small design choice, right? But the real reason is actually one of the most important safety features on the entire aircraft. Let's get into it. I mean, we see this shape every single time we fly. It just feels normal, maybe even a little sleek. But believe me, that curve isn't there for the aesthetics. Nope, it's a critical, life-saving piece of engineering. You see, that round shape is the direct result of a life-or-death lesson, one that was learned from a series of absolutely tragic accidents back in the early days of jet travel. It's a really fascinating story of science, safety, and a fatal design flaw. Okay, so to understand why the window's shape is so incredibly critical, we have to start with the forces, the incredible forces, that are acting on an airplane way up at 35,000 feet. You can almost think of the sky up there as a pressure cooker, but kind of in reverse. It all starts with this one concept: cabin pressurization. The air at cruising altitude is just way too thin for us to breathe. So to keep everyone on board safe and comfortable, the plane is constantly pumping air into the cabin to create an atmosphere we can actually, live in. So here's how it breaks down. At that cruising altitude, the air pressure outside is incredibly low. To make it breathable for us, the plane pumps air into the cabin, which creates a much, much higher pressure inside. And what does that give you? A massive difference in pressure between the inside of the plane and the outside. And that pressure difference, it doesn't just sit there. It's constantly pushing outwards on every single square inch of the plane's body, what we call the fuselage. It's literally just like blowing up a balloon. The whole structure is trying to expand. Now, this constant push and pull isn't just a one-time thing. Every single flight involves a cycle of pressurizing on the way up and depressurizing on the way down. Over thousands of flights, this causes something called material fatigue, basically the gradual weakening of the plane's metal skin. Remember that term? It's a critical piece of the puzzle here. So, what happens when you combine that immense repetitive pressure with a tiny design flaw? Well, back in the 1950s, the world found out in the most devastating way possible. This brings us to the tragic story of the de Havilland Comet. I mean, this plane was revolutionary, the world's very first commercial jetliner. But within just 2 years, comets started mysteriously falling from the sky. After this massive investigation, the horrifying cause was finally found. The planes were literally tearing themselves apart in midair due to structural failure. And that failure started right at the corners of their square windows. The culprit: it was a single, seemingly harmless design choice: the comet's stylish, large, square windows. As the investigators figured out, in a pressurized cabin, a square is pretty much the most dangerous shape you can possibly have. So why? Why were these corners so deadly? Well, all that outward pressure wasn't distributed evenly. It concentrated with incredible force right at those 4 sharp corners, which created massive weak points. Any tiny, invisible flaw in the metal at one of those corners became the starting point for a crack. And with the stress of every flight, those cracks would just grow and grow until catastrophic failure. The investigation into the comet disasters led to a fundamental shift in how aircraft are designed. And the solution to this deadly problem? It was surprisingly simple, but also profoundly effective. The fix was simple but absolutely brilliant. With a square window, stress just slams into the corners like a hammer. But with a round window, well, there are no corners. The stress has nowhere to build up. It just flows smoothly and harmlessly all the way around the curve. And you can see exactly how it works here. The square shape creates these natural weak points where fractures start. But the strong, continuous curve of the round window has no vulnerabilities like that. It's just a truly elegant solution to a really deadly problem. And this is why curves are king in aerospace engineering. With no sharp edges, there are no stress hotspots. The pressure gets shared equally by the entire frame, and that makes the whole structure way, way more resistant to that dangerous material fatigue we talked about earlier. Now, this might seem like a lesson straight from the history books, but it's a lesson that is actively keeping you safe right now on every single flight you take. So the next time you're buckling up and you're looking out that oval window, just take a second to appreciate it. You're looking at a piece of safety engineering that was frankly paid for with a heavy price. It's a design that directly prevents the kind of catastrophic failures that doomed those early Comet jets.
So let's just recap the key takeaways, because they're pretty straightforward. First, that difference in air pressure puts enormous force on the plane. Second, sharp corners concentrate that force, creating deadly weak points. And third, the curved shape of a round window distributes that stress safely, keeping the entire plane secure.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Our world is just filled with these kinds of invisible safety features, things born from trial and sometimes terrible error. What other simple life-saving designs are hiding in plain sight that we just take for granted every single day?